It's July 16th, 1870. World War II begins, which I will show historically is the beginning of the 95 Years' War, when this guy, Charles Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, or Napoleon III, the nephew and heir of the famous Napoleon Bonaparte, and the Congress of the Second French Republic declare war on Prussia, and that's with a P. Prussia and the Northern German Confederation is ruled by this guy, King Wilhelm I. Back in 1862, King Wilhelm had appointed this gentleman, Otto von Bismarck, as Minister-President of Prussia. He plays an important role in this whole affair also. So a little background to the 95 Years' War, which ends with World War II. These are things that happen in Europe that lead to the declaration of war by France. Way back at the end of the 30 Years' War in 1648, which was arguably the last of the wars of religion in Europe, the areas of Alsace and Lorraine become a part of France by the Treaty of Westphalia on October 24, 1648, as payment for their role in the 30 Years' War. Alsace and Lorraine was originally a part of the Holy Roman Empire. Understand this was not the Roman Empire with Caesar, but one with shared power between the Catholic Pope and their emperor. Pretty much all the wars fought in Europe after that were about imperial gains and control of colonial assets. Now let's fast forward 240 years. Here's a little more information about the creation of the German Empire. Back in 1864, Prussia and Austria, or the Austrian Empire, invade southern Denmark so they could gain control of the duchies of Schleswig, Holstein, and Lauenburg. This war was fought because a new Danish king, Christian IX, who had ascended to the throne of Denmark after King Frederick VII died without a direct heir, and he wanted to take control of these duchies and make them a permanent part of Denmark. Prussia and the Austrian Empire didn't want to give up control and invaded. Denmark was quickly defeated, and the duchies became a part of the Northern German states. 2 years later, in 1866, there's the Austro-Prussian War that begins. This war is fought between the Austrian Empire and, along with the Southern German Confederation, and the Prussian Empire with the Northern German states. It was mostly about who was going to gain control of the duchies of Schleswig and Holstein that they had worked together to conquer just 2 years prior. The Austro-Prussian War was the first European war that was fought with the new rifles with breech-loading cartridges. That means they could load them like this, which were used by the Prussians. It's called the Dreiss needle gun, a bolt-action rifle capable of firing far more rapidly than the muzzle-loading Lorentz rifles the Austrian army used. Since the Austrians were still using these old muzzle-loading rifles and the Prussians were not, it meant that the Prussians were able to fire from the prone position, meaning lying down behind cover, and the Austrians had to remain standing in the line of fire to reload, and they would actually have to put the powder into the end of the muzzle, hence muzzle loading. The Austrians were handily defeated. This war was short. It was only 7 weeks. It is sometimes referred to as the 7 Weeks' War. The result was the Peace of Prague on August 23rd of 1866. This resulted in the dissolution of the German Confederation, which included Austria, Prussia, the Southern German Confederation. Prussia then annexed many of Austria's former allies in the Southern Confederation and also excluded Austria from being able to get involved in German affairs. This left Prussia free to form the Northern German Confederation in the next year, 1867, incorporating all the German states north of the Main River. I don't even know if you can see that. Since Austria had no longer any influence, Prussia was able to convince the remaining southern states to support them in case of invasion from France. So here we are. Prussia is now the dominant power of all the German confederations and duchies. They have a guarantee from the remaining southern confederation to join them if France invades. So in 1870, the Second French Republic, ruled by Napoleon III, feared the balance of power in Europe was threatened because of Prussia's interest in unifying all the German states. Back in 1866, Napoleon III had demanded the territories of the Rhineland in return for his neutrality during the Austro-Prussian War. Chancellor Otto von Bismarck refused to cede any territory to France. France was strongly opposed to the annexation of the southern German states of Bavaria, Württemberg, Baden, and Hesse, which would have created too powerful of a country next to its border. Otto von Bismarck then used the Spanish succession question in 1868 to create an incident that was the path to German unification. This was to join all of the German kingdoms under Prussian dominance, just what the French had feared. The Spanish succession question was this: there was Prussian royalty in line to rule Spain. This guy, Leopold, Prince of Hohenzollern, he was requested by the Spanish government after the Spanish Revolution of 1868 that overthrew Queen Isabella II. He was supported by Otto von Bismarck, but his candidacy was withdrawn under French diplomatic pressure. Even though they are rarely directly involved, Spain always seems to play a role, or a sideways role, in the 95 Years' War. Then, in July of 1870, King Wilhelm I of Prussia had an informal meeting with the French ambassador while on vacation in his palace in Ems. The French ambassador had asked for a guarantee from King Wilhelm that he would not support another Russian candidate for King of Spain. Wilhelm said that it was not possible to do so, but in a very diplomatic way of doing it. This information was then sent via telegram to Berlin, the Ems telegram. This was a simple diplomatic dispatch. Otto von Bismarck then released this dispatch to the press. Imagine using the press. But presented it in a completely different light. His version stated that the king was refusing French demands not to support any Prussian leader of Spain, meaning that Leopold was the last that he would not support. In response, the French Parliament declared war on the Kingdom of Prussia on July 16, 1870. And so it begins. In my next video, I will cover the major battles of the Franco-Prussian War, which really lasted only about 2 months, but resistance continued for several more months. Most importantly, I will cover the results of the conflict, and this is where history ties itself together. This is World War II with Mike W., the history of the 95 Years' War. Please be sure to like this by clicking the thumbs up button below and then click the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell if you want to know when my next video is released. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.